Alright, what do you want input?
Bells of Heaven.
Trouble is, that's going to be the first, and I was just suggesting to Andrew that it's probably not best to start with the first track.
Right.
You know, get a couple under one's belt and then go to the first track with that one. Is there anything else that needs to be put? Thanatos?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Let's do that. So we'll do Thanatos, Dave, I think. And there's a new thing that has to be imported for this.
It's a stereo guitar track.
Yes.
Is that Thanatos 2?
Yeah, right.
That's
One
Thanatos
more
2, yes.
Epiphany,
Yeah,
which is
The new album, which began off as an EP. In fact, we don't know what it quite grew from, but it grew from something which was actually nothing. We had some leftovers from the last album, and I thought the best way to deal with this is to start off and just see where it goes. And an EP seemed the obvious way to do it. However, as we went along, things really did get out of hand. Serendipity took control, as they do, and the album became what it is. Steve's film. Hope you don't mind. Steve's filming. Great. What do you think?
Yeah, it's fine. I need to look at. What speed is it again?
Oh, it's like. That's great, Charlotte. Thanks a lot for that. Forgive me, this is great sin.
Is that the right octave? Or is it?
Phew, it's a good thing we did it through, isn't it? Oh, it's a bit of really. I think that's it.
This is about Bells of Heaven. So, this being the latest album, what was the inspiration for this album?
What was the inspiration for Bells of Heaven? Goodness, it was sitting in my room with my guitar and allowing whatever arrived to arrive. And about 15 pieces arrived. And when 15 pieces arrive, you have no option but to record them. So I went and recorded them, and they came out in the end in 10 songs. And they came out in very different ways. I had the idea that the piece should be an acoustic album, as ever, but that wasn't really what happened.
Sorry, I'm going to start it again. I played the wrong chord.
From where?
Start from where more or less from the beginning, I think. Where I did it incorrectly. I'm really sorry.
Okay.
It was just incorrectly read.
I wasn't expecting to do a metal song, and one of the songs was a metal song called Bells of Heaven, and that was co-written with a student, Edward, one of my private guitar students, and he came up with a riff, and I used that, and Edward came along to the studio and recorded it, and off we went. But just as I was going to record that and layer it down as that, just as a metal piece, I also had an acoustic idea a couple of nights before, and then that also went into the finished piece. So that was Bells of Heaven.
Is it just the way I feel? You are living in my mind. If I search, there will I find
Go on, say it.
This is Dave Cottrell, guitar player, drummer, keyboard player
Of
Mystical Sisters.
The music down.
Can we not leave it down? It sounds great in that key.
It does sound alright. It does sound alright, just one tiny little cymbal splash. 105, I think. James, just delete that. It's coming up now, I think.
I don't know if I can delete it without affecting the overall.
Weak and Helpless was a song from the past which I used to use in a Christian band, amazingly, and I rewrote that one evening when I was travelling back on the road from a northern town. Totally rewrote the lyrics, rewrote the music, added a different middle section.
Okay, you want to double track those end bits as well, yeah?
There was another track called Avarice, which was a throwaway thing, which I sat and wrote one night, which uses a few chords, nothing very difficult. That happened unconsciously. Steve Fellows, who plays with the Comtat Angels, who played with the Comtat Angels, recorded the vocals for that for me. Narcissus of Decor was an acoustic song which completely changed during the course of recording. Jane Wilkinson, who lives in London, did the vocals for that for me and made a brilliant job. There's a song called The Great Divide, which was originally a song called Ferry. I called it Ferryman. It was an acoustic song, and I sent it to Tim Bonis, who sings with No Man and a variety of other people. And Tim completely rewrote the lyrics and the melody line, and that's the way that happened.
Waiting that life exists in a hidden place, the other world that's never heard or seen, other what's lost can be won.
Otherworld, which I had the idea for the title of the album, that also completely changed during the process of recording the album. That was going to be an acoustic piece, and in the end it changed completely. I had no idea of the way this was going to happen. It's just the way things work out.
Life exists in a hidden place, the other world that's never heard or seen, other world. He keeps it inside.
There was a piece called Nostalgia, which also completely changed, and Jacob Herringman and Susanna Pell, both, Susanna is a viol player and Jacob is a lute player, they came over and recorded parts for me for that. That totally changed. It's a track called Neurosis, which began off as an acoustic piece, which also totally transformed during the course of composition. Maybe this album should be called The Process of Transformation or something, because I had no idea that any of this was going to happen. What I tend to do is record something, take it away, listen to it, and then it transforms during the time I take the album away and go back to the studio. I listen to it and then add other parts to it. It's the only way I can work, really. It's a bit like my normal kind of pencil to paper composition, but it's done sonically. It isn't done inwardly, it's done outwardly. But all the time there's a compositional process going on in terms I tend to write these things down in sketches and then of course write the parts out, but they aren't elaborated in the same way that the paper compositions are written, which of course the paper compositions have to be written elaborately because you have to give these pieces to other people to play. But with this kind of creative process, it's me that's doing the playing, so I can do all the memory, all the remembering of the parts. And that's the way it works.
But the dynamics of this album is so different to Sorrow because you've got other people performing, singing and playing other instruments, as well as Sorrow is very much you doing virtually everything, wasn't it?
That's true, and I think it's changed it as a result. With First Things and Sorrow, both those were acoustic albums, and they were both tasters, because it's a long time since I've done these kind of things. I thought I'd given up on songwriting. Many years ago, I had a dream of kneeling at the feet of Gabriel Fauré, the French composer. And Fauré was known principally as a songwriter. And Fauré was sitting in a wheelchair. He looked very dusty. Now, symbolically, what does that mean? Peter Davison, who's a friend of mine, who's a poet and an author, made the point that there was a songwriting element in me which was not being fulfilled. It had gone very dusty. And symbolically, I think these things show themselves out through dreams, or rather, the dreams are symbolic. So, First Things and Sorrow was an attempt to get back at this songwriting. There weren't things I planned. These things came about sheerly, completely by accident. I didn't really mean to do them, but these things happen. And maybe it's just a process that we go through. If you are a composer or a songwriter or whatever, sometimes things happen by accident, and I think we have to follow them. It's essential. This might sound really quite intense, but if we don't follow these things, I think we're going against ourselves.
The subconsciousness kicks in with us, doesn't it? Especially with this last album.
I'd agree. I'd also differentiate between the term subconscious and unconscious.
Yes.
Subconscious is more of a Freudian term, whereas unconscious is more of a Jungian term. And I think Jung makes the I think the difference between Freud and Jung is that Jung, and of course I'm more of a Jungian than a Freudian, although I wouldn't refute Freud's ideas because it's all to do with the unseen. I'd say that the Jungian form of the subconscious, called the unconscious, is more to do with the unseen world in terms of the I'm going to be careful what I say here. In terms of the other world, which might be correlated with spirit, and I think the Christian religion is deeply rooted in our collective thinking. So I don't think there's any way that I can evade or avoid that type of thinking anyway. So all these things tend to come out in my writing. I certainly wouldn't call myself a gospel writer, although in the past I called myself, I've certainly played in gospel bands, but those days are long gone, and I certainly wouldn't call myself a Christian in realistic terms. But who knows? I mean, these things might continue on in the unconscious.
There's an element of Christianity which has had, obviously, you know, an insight.
It's part of my history.
Yes, of course it is.
And I don't think any of us can escape our past or part of our history or even part of our culture, particularly if the culture is embedded in the collective unconscious.
Right?
Brilliant. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay. That was easy.
I walked into a shop in Chester, into Waterstones in Chester.
Right.
I walked up the classics book section and all the books were spine on looking at me, apart from one book, which was Mary Shelley's Matilda. And it was a blue book and someone had put it back and it was standing diagonally. And I picked it up and I thought, I have to buy that.
It spoke out to you.
It was just grabbed me.
Yeah.
And Matilda is a very interesting book, and it became the centre point of the album. If anyone's interested, they'd have to read the book. It's a novelette rather than a novel, and it was something that wasn't published during Mary Shelley's lifetime. Of course, Mary Shelley is known for Frankenstein.
It's more controversial, this book, though, isn't it? Because of the relationship between
William Godwin and Mary Shelley.
Yes.
William Godwin, of course, was her father, who was a philosopher. Mary Wollstonecraft, I think, was her mother, and of course Mary Shelley was the daughter of both. The book is about incest, which of course wouldn't be a popular subject in today's PC world, but I just found it compelling. And it's a story about a mother, about a daughter and a father, and the father falls in love with the daughter essentially. And of course the daughter never gets over it, and in the end the father kills himself, and in the end the daughter kills herself. It's a pretty black.
Not a happy ending.
No, it's a pretty black scenario really. And both the protagonists, both the mother and both the sister. Both the daughter and the father are obviously extremely affected because they may all kill themselves, but that's what the book's about. And so the piece is a 13-minute piece which ends the album called In the Pages Matilda, and the first part is called Matilda, the second part's called Threnody, the third part is called Thanatos, and the fourth part is called Epitaph. And it just seemed fitting that came about in those terms. I don't know why, it just struck me. I have no interest in incest whatsoever, just so you know.
What was the inspiration of Thanatos? What was the backing?
Death.
Right.
Thanatos means death. I think it's either a Greek term or a Latin term. And of course, when I was making the album, my mother died.
Yes.
A lot of things happened. A lot of things there were a lot of drawings of lines, a lot of endings, and I think Thanatos was probably about that. You never know when you make these albums. You never know what the albums are about. I tend not to rationalise these things. It's not like paper composition, where everything can be rationalised to the nth degree. When I do these albums, when I do this kind of work, the sonic work, the songwriting work, It's unconscious. I don't make a great deal of what I do, of the words. I don't really think about them. I just write them down on paper or record them, and that's how they come out.
Because originally this album started off as being just literally an EP, just 1 or 2 tracks, wasn't it really? Like 4 tracks or something.
Yeah.
It's expanded now into a full album of like 10 tracks, isn't it?
It was just leftovers recording. I just thought I'd do leftovers, and the way it happened, I think it happened within, what was it, from April to August. How many months is that? About August, September, October. Is that about 5 months?
5, 6 months. Yeah.
5 months, yeah. It developed fairly quickly.
From the original idea right up to sort of finalising.
Yeah, because Sorrow, the last album, was out in March.
Yes.
And this album was out in, when was it? September. I had no idea how it was going to work out. I never really think of the way things are going to work out. If they work out, they work out. If the energy is such that the album demands that it be now I keep talking about album, but if the songs demand that they are expanded in some way, then I'll go along with it. If pieces or songs don't work out like that, because of course I had a lot of leftover material. Even with this, I'd rewritten pieces or written pieces which were eventually thrown out.
Yeah, you're not afraid to jettison something if it doesn't work, or if you
Absolutely
think
not.
Yeah,
no. There's no point in using dead material. If things don't work, there's no point. With the last album, I had a couple of things which weren't usable, so I just threw them out. But I think that's the nature of a thing. I think often you hear bands which record things and chuck things out. And I know that when I used to write things endlessly on paper, I'd have sketches which were just chucked out and pieces and ideas which were thrown out. And I think if you're fairly intense about these things and fairly serious about these things, you're going to find in the end that whatever you write is going to either be transformed or jettisoned.
Yeah, you can't use everything, can you?
Absolutely not. No. If things aren't right, get rid of it. There's no point in using it.
So finally, have you got some idea for releasing Bells of Heaven for next year?
Yeah, it'll be released